Well, good morning. Today is our 25th day into the workbook of A Course in Miracles. And I read this lesson over several times, and there's something really amusing about it that I'd like to point out in case you didn't sort of get the joke. Um, this is, oh, and I think what he's trying to do in the lesson is to show you what the ego's goals actually are in the middle of the lesson, so that you get a handle on what's been actually happening to you since the beginning of time until now. So let me read it quickly through, and I'll show you what it is I'm talking about. Says, I do not know what anything is for. And, of course, there's always a necessity to include this in. And if you can include this in, you'll get the joke. I do not know what anything is for. Purpose is meaning. Today's idea explains why nothing you see means anything. You do not know what it is for, therefore it is meaningless to you. Everything is for your own best interest. That is what it is for. That is its purpose. That is what it means. It is in recognizing this that your goals become unified. It is in recognizing this that what you see is given meaning. You perceive the world and everything in it as meaningful in terms of ego goals. Remember that sentence. You perceive the world and everything in it as meaningful in terms of ego's goals. The goals have nothing to do with your own best interest because the ego is not you. This false identification makes you incapable of understanding what anything is for, including this. That's my addition, although it is also the way Jesus would have you read this. As a result, you are bound to misuse it. When you believe this, you will try to withdraw the goals you have assigned to the world instead of attempting to reinforce them. Okay, we're going to skip ahead. We're going to miss a paragraph. We're going to go down to the fourth paragraph. Okay, so now you've read that. And of course the ego is right there attempting to help you understand this based on its perceived goals, which have nothing to do with your own best interest. And he says in the fourth paragraph, before you can make any sense out of this exercise for today, one more thought is necessary. So here we are going along, trying to make sense out of this exercise in recognition of the ego has goals of attempting to understand that which is understandable without fully recognizing what is necessary for anybody to understand anything. So you gotta learn to laugh. As the old man used to say, nobody wakes up without a sense of humor. And believe me, Jesus isn't awake in mind. He's not laughing at you. He's laughing with us in the recognition that your wholeness and perfection will one day become the most valuable thing you can recognize about yourself, because it's the only true thing about yourself that you can recognize. So, before you can make any sense out of the exercise for today, one more thought is necessary. At the most superficial levels, you do recognize purpose. Yet, purpose cannot be understood at these levels. For example, you do understand that a telephone for the purpose of talking to someone who is not physically in your immediate vicinity. What you don't understand is what you want to reach him for. It is this that makes your contact with him meaningful or not. The only true purpose in any of our encounters, if any of our encounters with any of our brothers, and anything that we use for, is for the healing of our mind and the recognition of our own oneness with our brother, and the idea that minds are already joined, so therefore can recognize their own jointness, rather than using everything in the world to maintain separation and reinforcing the ego's goals. So, purpose is meaning. You do not know what your own best interests are. Before you can make sense out of any of these exercises for today, one more thought is necessary. And you were up here reading this, attempting to make sense, when he's telling you that you don't understand anything. Because it can't possibly be in the attempted ego understanding where the value of these lessons are. The value is in the application of the lessons as they're designed to be applied for the purpose that they've been given to us. Not for the purpose for establishing anything meaningful here, but for the purpose of seeing that nothing here has meaning apart from the meaning that you give it in your mind. And we've been giving it the ego's meaning since the beginning of time, because that's what time is. It's an attempt to serve a purpose other than the purpose of God creating you. And I assure you, there's no reality in it whatsoever, yet it sure damn well feels real most of the time we're here. Don't worry about that part of it. Don't worry about what feels real and doesn't feel real. Don't try to understand it, because it's meaningless to you at this point in time. Accept that rather than attempting to understand it. The goals you perceive the world and everything in it as meaningful in terms of the ego's goals. It's an interesting idea that came from Karl Marx. The idea of alienation being based on being removed from your own means of support. So that money came into play, and money became more important to you than your own means of support. And that's why we are so alienated. That's one of the reasons for our alienation. We pursue something that has actually nothing to do with our means of support. Remember, you are sustained by the love of God, and trying to pursue substance in any other form is going to be completely meaningless. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't eat, you shouldn't go to your jobs. It is to say that you can begin to see the meaningless nature of the goals that we've set in terms of what this course is designed to bring about in each and every one of us, because this course will believe in its entirety or not at all, and the totality of what it's offering you is the certainty that there is no world in which you can get sick, you can suffer and die, because the you who is in it has no reality whatsoever and is merely an image that you've made of yourself and everything else. You make an ego for yourself, and you make an ego for everyone else. And you give value to everything based on the needs that ego has established in its own hierarchy of need. There's a great discussion in the original material that Helen took from Jesus about that. And maybe after reading this lesson and applying it, if you go back, it'll become a little bit more understandable to you. We live, or attempt to live, and sustain life in the world based on a hierarchy of needs that we've established in our own minds, wherein which we give more value to one thing as opposed to another thing, based on something that has no truth to it whatsoever and is not you at all. You are not the ego, period. It's the undoing of your need to identify with the ego that is being brought to light here. As to what we perceive around us as the world is here for us to work out our own salvation and the salvation of the totality of the brotherhood, who for a single instant remembered not to laugh at the tiny mad idea of separation, and is fragmented into millions and billions and zillions of tiny little bits and pieces that we try to hold together and understand based on some establishment in our own minds, and therefore we experience within the feeling nature of the heart of God that we are. All of which is at the expense of our own reality. And I assure you, if you do these lessons rather than try to understand them from the ego's need, and make no mistake about it, in this particular era of time, the enlightened mind has become something worth pursuing and therefore something valuable. But no one was ever enlightened in the future, and no one was ever enlightened in the past. And as Jesus says, seeking for the light is like walking around with your eyes covered. It's really very simple. Yet it's confusing and confounding to those who think that the meaning they give to everything, based on the hierarchy of illusion they've established as their reality, has a validity separate from the mind that's perceiving it, because it doesn't. And we could see that just if we look around in our own neighborhoods. Look at the difference in the goals that people set and how they live their life based on the goals that they're set. None of those goals are real, because the ego that offers you the ability to identify with it and give meaning to those goals, and therefore purpose to the life you are leading based on the meaning that it's given it, is not who you are, has never been who you are, will never be who you are, so therefore it is not you now. Another way of describing the goals you now perceive is to say they are all concerned with personal interests. Since you have no personal interests, your goals are really concerned with nothing. The nature of a teacher of God accepting his function in this world is because at some point in time he did not see his own interests as separate from his brothers. That's brothers plural and in its entirety. We were created with one single purpose, and we are held in the single nature of that purpose as the meaning God created us to be. We are God's love. We are the extension of his reality as love, and therefore we will learn to create love as he has created us. And attempting to create anything other than love, or attempting to recognize that you are sustained by something other than the love of God, is meaningless, since there is only the love of God. There is no such thing as sickness, pain, suffering, and death in the world, in the universe, in the reality that God created you to be. Since you have no personal interests, your goals are really concerned with nothing. In cherishing them, therefore, you have no goal at all. And many of you who come to this in the devastation of recognizing that no matter what goal you have pursued in the world, it has failed to offer you happiness, both in the pursuit, in the accomplishment, or in the non-accomplishment of it. Many of you, in that abject surrender for no reason whatsoever, other than the recognition of the meaninglessness of life, have advanced much further than you could possibly imagine if you base your advancement on the feelings that you experience and the ego's need to give meaning to those emotional experiences and feelings that you have. In cherishing them, therefore, you have no goal at all, and thus you do not know what anything is for. And just as a little aside to the lesson, for our children and for our children's children, it's about time we began to offer them a true goal and foster conditions wherein which they can achieve that goal. Not at the expense of the world or your neighbor, but because the world and your neighbor's interests are not separate from your own. And the only happiness anyone will ever experience is in the doing of God's will. Now, in those moments when you have experienced true happiness, the ego loves to co-opt that and offer you its reason why you've been happy. When the fact of the matter is, in those instants, possibly unbeknownst to you, you actually succeeded in doing God's will. So don't tell me you can't do this, and don't think in your own mind it's too hard to do, because nothing could be easier than doing the will of God, because there is only the will of God. All the suffering, all the sickness, all the pain, all the lack, all the experience of need comes from the ego's ability, unwittingly, to dupe you into thinking you are it, when in fact, the only way it exists is in your identification with it, not directly, but tacitly, by pursuing the goals and tasks it sets you upon in the world of space and time. So with that, I'm going to leave you, not to understand this lesson, but to simply do it as it's designed to do. So follow the instructions. 6 practice periods, each of 2 minutes duration, are required. It is crucial to your learning to be willing to give up the goals you have established for everything. Now, this is key. I'm going to say this. This is key. Because remember, the duality of the nature of the split mind has caused us to look at things in terms of good and bad, happy and sad, etc., opposites and opposition. The recognition of the meaninglessness of all of it is the only way to accomplish it. Here's another one of those only ways to accomplish that Jesus offers us. The recognition that the goals we have established based on the need of the self-preservation of the ego, the recognition that they are meaningless rather than good or bad, is the only way to accomplish this. The idea for today is a step in this direction. Remember, it's a step. Some of you will have instantaneous recognitions of the truth of this. For some of you, it will remain just a step in the undoing of your mind as we proceed with this year's lessons. Don't judge yourself. These are not exercises in judgment. They're exercises that are designed to undo your mind, the ego mind that is attempting to understand this for its own purpose and co-opt the teaching, quite frankly, because you become unwilling to give up the goals that it has established in the recognition that it is good or bad, rather than simply meaningless. So go forth today and look around you. Get acquainted with the goals that the ego has established. Don't bemoan them. Don't judge yourself for having done it. The past is gone. Let it go. Today, we can begin to learn a new way of being here and now.